I'll introduce the talk. So we have a journey to protecting point of sale with Nir Valtman. So,
thank you. Good afternoon, and it's my pleasure to be here today. My name is Nir, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about my story, my personal story about protecting point of sales. Before I start, I just want to do a short introduction about myself, and then we'll be able to get into the details. So just a short introduction. I just brought a few slides to explain who I am and what I do. So generally, that's what I tell people that I do. Obviously, I'm not the Batman. I'm the cashier. But actually, I'm actually work as an enterprise security architect for a big company. The thing that I do today is just solving a lot of problems that we have in the retail line of business and in the retail environments for our customers, and I'm doing it for these guys. So I did a lot of research about them and a little bit about this, and released a few open source tools. One of them will be demonstrated here. We have 2 demos, and I hope that they will work. So why we're here? We're here to understand what I understood in last year. I actually took a journey. Actually, it was a mission of me that I wanted to understand how to protect point of sales, because all of the point of sales have a lot of security issues, and I know that from the other side we have a lot of products that should protect any computers or any embedded devices, but yet there's a lot of challenges and a lot of assumptions that retailers take that probably do not allow to all of the cool products that we hear every day to be integrated in these products. So I just decided to take this session to explain you what can work, what can't work, a little bit explain you about the memory scraping attack, which is obviously part of you heard about it. And then we'll be able to explain what can be done in order to protect the point of sales. But I must say from now, if you expect to get 100% bulletproof solution, you won't get it. You'll get just ideas. So why point of sales are so targeted? So let's just start from a screenshot that I took from any domain. Probably you'll see it pretty easily through Tor. So I just looked for the prices, and I saw that a lot of credit cards are sold there, but the prices are pretty low. But if you'll get a full dumps of pans, and that means that if you get a pan, it may be not enough. You want the full track data. Sometimes you want the PIN of the credit card, and that costs more money. So that's the reason why it's not only point of sale hacking. Well, actually, it's not only e-commerce hacking. Today, it's more going to the point of sale world. So if we'll just compare what it's more targeted or what should be targeted more. So if we look at the e-commerce, so it's pretty easy. In the e-commerce, they pay with a method called card-not-present transactions. That means that you can just enter a credit card to the e-commerce. It's stored somehow on their website. And then it's only the credit card and the expiration date. But what about the CVV, which is so important for us in order to do transaction or register our card on other retail environments? Then it becomes a little bit harder. But if you look at the point of sales have the whole data. They have the whole track 1, 2. They have sometimes the pins, and then it becomes more targeted. So before we begin to dive into the details, I just want to speak with you a little bit about the deployment options and what kinds of point of sales there are in the wild. But there's only examples, okay? There's not all types of point of sales. So the first one is pretty common. That's the point of sale that you see in the retail environments. The main thing that we need to understand here is that it's not that accessible like ATMs. There's no guards to protect from stealing it, but yet it's somehow in a kind of protected environment. On the other hand, there are other POSs, which are fuel pumps. Fuel pumps are exactly as ATMs because, well, you can put there any skimming device that you want because it's just there. And the last one is actually the mobile POS or MPOS. The main purpose of this one is not because it's cool to put point of sale on an iPad or any other device. The main thing here is queue busting. That means that if there's long queue in the retail environments or retail stores, then it's pretty easy just to come with an iPad, scan the items, and let the customer go. Obviously, it's printed somehow in other places, but yet it's pretty advanced technology, sorry. Okay, but the most important thing to understand with all of these point of sales, do you know what this means in this picture? There is no spoon. What this means? This means that when actually attackers try to attack point of sale, that's not the right target. The right target is the payment application. Payment application is the one that actually controls the payment flow. The point of sale manages other things. They have loyalty systems and they have logins, for instance, of the cashiers. But it's not the payment details. So when a hacker aims to steal credit cards, probably you need to go to the payment application, not to the point of sale. So let me just shortly explain about the architecture of how it works, and then I'll explain you obviously how to attack it. So if we have a store, probably we'll have their point of sales, and we have a server that will go to the payment processor network. But if we'll begin just with a little bit explanation about who contacts who, we'll see that we have the POS, we have the payment client, PA application client. This client is maybe DLL that embedded as part of the POS, or it can be external executable file. And both of them store data on a database or a file system. It doesn't matter. We'll get into it later. But yet, they work with the RAM. And a lot of the attacks are going to the RAM. So except this fact, we have the PA client, which controls the pin pad or MSR, which is a magnetic stripe reader. And this is what we have on a POS. If we'll go into the server, we'll see that we have a PA server, which he's the one that goes out to the internet. And it also have a database and the RAM. So following understanding these communications, I suppose that it will be good to understand where is our credit cards. So the credit cards actually, if we look at the credit cards at rest, we'll see that we have it on the database. And why we have it on the database? Because sometimes the transactions are not online, or sometimes we don't have connectivity. So in these cases, we can store the credit cards on the machine. There's a lot of other scenarios, actually not a lot, but a few of them, that requires this. And by the way, this is PCI compliant and all the other secure stuff that we define as secure. So anyway, we have the REST data, we have the data in transit, which is pretty basic because we have communication channels. Except one of the things that we see here, we see the communication between the PA client and the pin pad. It doesn't mean that we need Wireshark to see all the communications. Sometimes the communications are not based on Wireshark. And it's not only network-based. Sometimes it's RS-232, and this is also something that can be tampered. And the last thing is the memory. Okay, so we have the credit cards on both the PA client and the PN server in certain point of time. But yet, in all of this retail environment, we have servers, we have clients, and that's great. But today, the retailers are a little bit more exposed because they have mobile payments and they have e-commerce. And now it makes it a little bit more complex. So let me just explain a little bit about how it integrates with today's technologies. So if we'll just look at basic e-commerce scenario, we'll see that we have a mobile app, we have a presentation server, then we have the PA payment application server, which talks with the payment processor. And then we'll look at the data again. We have the data in REST, which is pretty simple. We have it in the same place. We have the data in transit, pretty obvious. But then we need to look at the memory. So we have the data in memory in the payment application, and in certain cases we have it also in the presentation layer. The best example here is, for instance, when I want to register my credit card and I just want to put it somewhere. So when I want to register the credit card, then I have the PAN also on my mobile device, then it goes to the presentation server, and then it goes to the backend systems. So again, somehow the backend system needs to manage credit cards or transmit credit cards. And in this scenario, by the way, we have the CVV, CVV2. So it makes it, again, a good target for attacking. So there's pretty simple solution to avoid this, because, well, if we're talking about the whole environment, this is something that can be solved pretty easily. It can be solved by just putting all the credit cards in something called token server. Token server is a server that we can just put between the application server and the processor, or even on the processor side. The token server, it's a simple table that stores credit card number, encrypted and everything. And on the other side, it has a token. So this time when we use mobile wallets, probably we'll not use mobile wallet with a real credit card number. We'll actually use it with a token. And we can do it one-time tokens, and it's pretty easy to solve this problem. So now we just need to go back to the point of sale and understand how to solve this problem. Because on the internet, although it's already exposed, it can be solved easily. Yet, when we register the credit card, it doesn't matter which type of mobile wallet do we have the credit card there. So let me a little bit explain you about the retail environment assumptions, because the retailers take these assumptions and then they decide what type of protection they should put on the environment. So the first assumption, yeah, we're compliant, and it doesn't mean anything, because being compliant, it doesn't mean that you actually protect, for instance, memory scraping attack. The other thing is the fact that point of sales run on embedded devices. Well, it's not embedded, it's just Windows embedded. So yeah, it has less services and maybe it's a little bit more lightweight, but does it mean that it's more secure? The answer is obviously not exactly. If they have all the patches, and they have patches, retailers try to install patches, although it looks like point of sales are static. They are static, but the Windows still gets updated. The next assumption, well, that's the logo of the Heartbleed, but the assumption is that they won't have Heartbleed. And you know why? because most of the retailers don't encrypt the traffic, so they won't have Heartbleed. No chance. By the way, that's good. Okay. The next thing is, well, pretty odd assumption that claiming that they're not connected to the internet. Well, they're not connected directly to the internet. Probably if someone wants to steal credit card data, he'll need to go through a few hops until he gets out. But yet, it's connected to the internet. The next thing is that the retailers actually trust the cashiers. Okay, so they trust the cashiers, and the cashier may trust a USB stick. So we have a full chain of trust. And therefore, probably we'll find another problems with it later. And, well, the last assumption here is that, well, I asked one of the retailers, what about auditing? We want to prevent fraud and want to see what's going on if the cashiers try to get money from the POS. And they said, we have a full auditing system. We have physical cameras. No one can steal money from us. So that's pretty good assumption from their side, but from our application side, it really doesn't matter. But except these assumptions, there's Achilles tendons that are pretty common to most of the point of sales installations. And one of them is the rats. Oh, sorry. These rats, not the previous one. So the remote administration tools such as VNC, they're just installed on the point of sales because when we deploy point of sales, we must understand that probably we'll have a lot of sites. Let's say more than 1,000 sites. So it's a little bit difficult to send technician to all of these 1,000 sites. So probably we'll need to get into the system and then debug it, and maybe we'll be able to solve it from remotely. So this is one Achilles tendon. The second one is a little bit connected to the fact that retailers say that they're not connected to the internet. No one really knows where the POS can go. For instance, or if from, let's say, the network, the administrative network, can someone access to the point of sale? Or someone from, I don't know, let's say someone who have a user in the Active Directory, just have a user. Maybe he can access to this point of sale. So there's a lot of administrative things that we need to consider. And the last thing that is the Achilles tendon on the point of sales is the fact that most of them run with local admin, which is great. This is embedded Windows, right? But yet it's a local admin. So you can do anything you want. By the way, this is the reason why memory scrapers work pretty easily. They don't need to exploit anything. They just have the permissions to read the memory of all of the processes. So let's talk about the threats, because this is something that you'll see that it's odd to hear that it's still there. So the low-hanging fruits that we have on the point of sales is the permissions. As I said, that means it's pretty obvious, but yet, if there are few retailers that don't provide this local admin access, they still don't have the exact permissions for all of the operation. And the first example is just the drivers. Oops, the drivers. The drivers for the pin pads, if I'll be able to change them, well, I can just change the way that pin pad works. For instance, if the driver today with certain configuration tells the pin pad to encrypt the pin, then the new driver will tell the pin pad, hey, don't encrypt the pin, and by the way, send it to this address. The next thing is the permissions on the processes. as I said, the memory scraping works because there's high privileges. And it means that sometimes it allows specific read access for the payment application, even though it can be included or excluded, well, external from the POS. The next thing is database. In many cases, the POS user is the one that's able to get to the database. So we don't need to hack anything. We just need to find the SQL injection and get into the database. Or in other cases, we can just steal the MDF file. If the POS contains all the files on the POS and not on the server. And the last thing, well, that's what I said, the database and the folders, files, etc. The next thing is pretty, let's say, you'll see it on browsers. When you go to a URL that, obviously with HTTPS and you see an error. You see the error because it's not trusted or the IP is not correct with the name. But you see the error. The POS is not a browser. It won't show you the error. So that means that if you want to do man-in-the-middle attacks with SSL, if the POS doesn't validate the certificate that this is correct and has no errors, you will be able to do the man-in-the-middle attack, even though there is a SSL, and it will be fine. So let me just explain you a little bit about the flaws that we have and what should be attacked and probably what is the result of them. So the first payment stage called authorization. When you just swipe the card, you just get an authorization code for the transaction, and then the point of sale shouldn't store the credit card number. So this is pretty simple. We have the point of interaction or PIN pad or any other device that actually transmits the track1-2 data to the PA application. Then the PA application, through the server and all the architecture that already explained, it goes to a gateway. This gateway decides based on some business scenario to whom should it be transferred. For instance, Amex costs less than Visa at this time, then the router will pass the transaction to other place, to the correct processor. Then the processor also does some routing and it goes to the acquirer, and from there to the issuer. But the assumption here is that this part is pretty difficult to exploit. So we need to exploit the left side of the deck. In order to exploit it, we need to understand that the only way to get the credit cards is by just waiting for them to get into the system. And it's real time. That means that if someone swipes the card, then we'll be able to get it. So it means that it's time consuming, and we'll probably need to wait with this malware, and it should kind of work as in injected mode a lot of time in the POS. So that means that if we have another injected process or injected DLL into a process, it may also consume performance. So that means that we will be able, probably, if we'll do the right analysis, we'll be able to know that we have a malware there. I know that no one does the analysis, but yet it can be done. On the other hand, there's another flaw. The flaw is settlement. That means that we don't actually transfer all the credit cards and get the authorization. We actually store them on a file, and then we decide to transmit all the credit cards that we collected in the end of the day. So that means that we have a file somewhere that contains credit cards. And again, we have a part that is pretty hard to exploit, but yet we have the part that's easy for us to exploit. And if we look at this part, we don't actually need a memory scraper, because We just need to read the file. And it's much easier, and it's much faster, and no performance issues. So this is the difference between the flaws, but yet memory scraping is more widespread, and I want to demonstrate how it works. Great, so I have here a Windows machine, and I have here a memory scraper. By the way, this is open source memory scraper. You'll be able to find it on GitHub if you follow me. This is something that I've done with a few students. And well, I have here a memory scraper demo pause. This memory scraper has simple functionality. It has nothing except credit card. So if we try to scan the memory of this thing, this payment application, currently we shouldn't find anything. So let me just check how it works. Let me go to the memory scraping demo pause, and just select this process, define the regular expression, and just start the scan. As long as we don't have the credit card, everything's fine. But when we set the PAN, we see that it's pretty easy to read the memory. The memory scraper is not something that works one time. It's not a function that runs one time. It runs with threads. It can run every 5, 10, 20 seconds. It depends again on the performance. And yet it can find the credit card details. But this memory scraper runs with admin permissions. That's not good for us, and this is definitely not enough for Black Hat. So let me just close this one, because I have something better. Let me open it again. I can actually inject a DLL into the process of the pause without obviously editing anything in the pause. And I just ran the framework injection. This is an open source tool that allows injection. So now I ran it, and it took some time. And I have here the log, and since you see that it's pretty empty, you'll see that we don't have any pans here. Let me just set a pan and run it again. Okay, so we found the credit card by injecting a DLL. The reason why we could do it is because I'm running with the same user on the operating system. And that means that even if I have a weak user, which is this user, the name of this user is foo, and he's not even admin in the machine, but yet he's able to do it. So that's pretty much the problem, because the pause, how it started, you just double click the pause, and it's like a magic. It starts with the same permissions of the same user. And that's the reason why even if you have a point of sale malware, still you'll be able to execute this attack even with low permissions. So let me just go back to the presentation. We'll have another demo later. Great. Another thing that can be done on the pause is actually, well, since the pause is not only a payment application, it contains few more details, then we'll be able to steal credentials. Sometimes it's cashier credentials, and sometimes if you registered to a loyalty system through e-commerce or m-commerce websites, then probably you'll be able to actually get login credentials. And if they're not hashed and everything, probably you'll be able to use them for another website. I'm not sure that you'll be able to use them for Google, okay, because many people make more secure passwords on these websites, but yet you'll be able to steal the credentials. Another thing that you'll be able to do is affect the privacy, because point of sale store privacy information such as address, telephone number. And it's a little bit problematic to encrypt all the PII data, especially on POSes, because POSes are weak machines. Assume that POSes, part of them are still Pentium 4. So it's pretty weak. The next thing is really, really bad. Well, not the fat bastard. He's good. But the thing is that point of sales run with the deployment of a thick POS. That means that the presentation layer and the business logic and the database, everything is installed on the same POS. The reason for that is because the CIOs don't want to take the risk of disconnecting from the network. So if they just disconnect from the network, probably the POSes won't work because the business logic is not there. So few of the CIOs decided that they want to replicate their lines, and then that's great. But for those who don't replicate their lines, still they use with a thick touch, with a thick POS, and that means that if you have enough permissions, you don't need to hack the POS. You just need to steal the MDF file or the other offline files that you have there. As for exfiltrating the data, the credit card data, there's actually two scenarios. The first scenario is online scenario. Maybe that's the scenario that you heard somewhere or read over the internet. This scenario means that I found the credit cards and I found a way to get this data out to a CNC server. That's great if it works. But the other way is less common but yet dangerous. The other way means that I can actually put or insert actually a discount key to the POS or to a PA server. And then when the malware finds specific ID of the discount key, it just copies everything to this discount key. So this is kind of an offline attack. So you can just be someone who cleans the floor there, go to the server's room, and once a day just connect your discount key and then get the credit cards. I know that it's less scalable, but this is a pretty good solution to get the credit cards. So I checked a few solutions. I met with a lot of companies. Part of them are big enterprises. Part of them are startup companies. And I understood that there are a few solutions that are bypassed and a few solutions that may work on point of sales. And that's, by the way, the reason of being here and speaking about it. But before checking for solutions, I actually decided to do a small test with code. So I took a simple class called secure string class. This is something that is basic on .NET. For those of you who don't know what is the secure string class, this is a class that stores a string encrypted in the memory. So in theory, if I use the secure string class, probably a malware won't be able to steal the credit card details. That's just an assumption. Well, there's a demo. Great. So I have another POS. This is a POS that actually stores the credit card number as a secure string. So when I just set the PAN, well, probably I won't be able to print it because I can't. On the other hand, since .NET or Java is a managed code, well, it's managed. So I can do whatever I want. So if I'll just call the reverse of it, by the way, just marshalling it, I can decrypt the credit card. And if I can't decrypt the credit card, it doesn't matter. I can just run the same injection process, and probably I'll get the same result in the log. So this is just, again, the injection to the process. It takes a minute, and then we'll see the log. Again, we found the credit card, even though it's a secure string. Okay, so now we understand that there are no magic solutions. By the way, the magic solution is not in the software, it's in the hardware. Because there is a way to encrypt the credit card numbers and not transfer them to the POS, just point-to-point encryption from the pin pad. Without configuration, it should be on the hardware. But yet it costs a lot of money, so we still need to find a solution somehow to protect it. So again, going forward to the next solution, obviously firewalls don't work, even if they're the next and next again generation. It doesn't matter. If it looks on a payload, again, it doesn't matter. Most of the point of sales work with HTTP and HTTPS. So that means that if it works with HTTP and HTTPS, still it can be bypassed, even if we can just put another payload as part of the request. Another thing is all the anti-asterisk, antivirus, anti-malware, all these things. Well, there are actually two facts about memory scrapers. They protect themselves as well, and that means that if memory scraper try to steal credit card number, probably if the POS not encrypts it, he'll be the one that encrypts the credit card numbers. So that means that if you have well, that's kind of connects me to the next slide. If you have a data loss prevention product, it won't work, because data loss prevention products may be able to decrypt something, but if I just encrypt something or the PAN with a key that is not exactly shared with the data loss products, or I just use my encoding, probably the data loss product won't be able to see it, and it will be bypassed. The next thing is pretty common, and it's not the right way to work in the retail environments, but yet this is something that is pretty widespread across the retailers. They have a whitelisting product. The whitelisting product, it's pretty nice concept, because it allows only specific files to run, hashed files, and sometimes it even replaces the antivirus software. Because, well, if I have only allowed files in the system, then it doesn't matter what I put there, probably it won't run, right? But the fact is that point of sale is not only an application that you double click and it works. Sometimes you have shares that you need to just transfer files and offline records, logs. And in these places, you can just, well, since they're excluded from whitelisting, you can just put there anything you want. Another fact is that, well, MD5, I suppose that's not new, but it's vulnerable to collision attacks. So if you just put another exe file, it will work. But on the other hand, if you put stronger hashing algorithm, it will affect the performance. As I said, Pentium 4 running SHA-256 is a little bit hard today, okay? So there's a conflict. So most of the products run with MD5, by the way. So it can be bypassed. So what are the correct solutions? Or at least the ones that I believe they can be correct. The first of them is not exactly technical solution. It's more like working with the companies that know what are the risks for the retail environments, and this is cyber intelligence. And just to show you the results that you can get from it, I have a few screenshots. So the first screenshot is pretty nice. Someone just posts a request and he says, oh, okay, I just want to get an access to the POS terminal. What's the best malware that I need to get in order to hack a POS? Which is, it sounds pretty simple. And yes, this is pretty simple because it just, someone recommends a black POS. Then you have the Alina, someone recommends on it. And in the end, someone will give you the detailed explanation about what should you do. For instance here, translated from Russian, it means that you need to infect the malware on the terminal, and by doing that, you can get the full track 1.2 data without the PIN, but this is something that's limited to the specific terminal. So that's cool because you can get the answers and pretty quick. And when you know that people look for vulnerabilities or ways to hack something, you'll probably know that you need to put the focus on it in terms of security or product security. Another example is, well, someone sells malicious software for Verifone's POS terminals. And it has good explanation about what it can do and the price. And it's pretty nice because it leaks all the dumps through GPRS, and then you should just get it without any firewall limitations. So that's pretty easy. The next one is BizDev offer. I'll give you the terminal, no problem. But then we'll do revenue sharing. That's also nice. So this is just a few examples of cyber intelligence that you can get and then understand how to protect the point of sales. But I believe it's something more general than only point of sales. But yet, since there are not too much vendors, you'll be able to get specific data on yourself. Another thing is, well, someone asks information about how to change the configuration to require PIN from a terminal. Although the PIN is not something that's supported there, you can't get the PIN just like that. So the claim is that they just get 101 data without the PINs. And there is no exactly technical solution for that. By the way, the response is pretty nice. They just recommended to use Thermal Imager, and then by using Thermal Imager, you'll be able to see where the people press the buttons and then get the PIN. Nice, but I don't know if someone implemented it, but yet I believe it's nice. The next solution is sandboxing, and I know that although we hear a lot about bypassing sandbox, I believe that sandboxing is a good enough solution, and only if the sandbox protecting only one application without the ability to communicate between the applications. And then it will be fine, and again, it depends on the vendor. The next thing, well, I said that point of sales are pretty static, except the patches. So that means that if someone infects a POS and it behaves in other way, I believe that network-based anomaly detection can solve the problem because, as I said, it doesn't change. The next thing is operating system anomaly detection. Well, in the operating system, there are things that can be done, which are, although they're pretty closer to the kernel. And then, for instance, you can just put traps on drivers and check the flows of the application if you know how to learn how the application works. And actually, I can tell you that I don't care if someone infects a pause. It can be infected, and nothing will work here until the next solution. But yet, the thing that is mostly important when protecting point of sales is understanding how to prevent the exfiltration of the data, not only infecting it. So the next thing I believe that can actually prevent the infection and not only the exfiltration. This is pretty nice. This is a nice concept that is pending for a patent. That's a company that I met a few months ago, and they do kind of runtime obfuscation. At least that's the category that they explain me. But if I'll explain it in simple words, it does an operating system obfuscation. And that means that this product allows obfuscation of the whole operating system. And that means that if you try to infect a pause, you'll be able to infect only one pause because all the system calls, just an example, will be renamed. So you'll be able to infect one. What about the rest? It won't work. So this is a pretty nice concept. And I'm just looking for their development to see how it works. But yet, again, we got solutions, we got problems. But not only products can solve these problems that we have. In fact, we need to add a little bit more security layers. So this is pretty basic, security hardening for the operating system. Yeah, we'll probably need to do it. NIST and all of the standards probably will work on point of sales unless the point of sales runs something special. Well, the only thing that we need to check here is the drivers. That's all. The next thing, well, it's kind of conflict because we can't put all the security measures that we want on point of sale. Let's say auditing. I want to see the Pentium 4 that runs all the auditing that NIST recommends. It won't work. The pause won't be functional because when you go to the market and you just pass your product, you want to hear the toot. You don't want to pass the product and then wait 10 seconds and then get the toot. You don't want it. So that's a fact. The next thing is assembly signing. Well, if you sign the assembly, you minimize the risk of injecting a memory scraper into the memory. Although I know that it can be bypassed in a certain solution, but it's not the topic here. But yet this is good enough if the pause is already running, is already in the memory. The only risk here is when it starts. The next one is the obfuscation, because as I said, point of sales, they run as a thick pauses. And that means that they have the business logic installed on their operating system. So in this case, if we'll do an obfuscation, I know that obfuscation is just, it's not a real protection. It just minimizes the risk of reverse engineering. But yet, if we'll have all the controls, I believe it will be better. In the demo, I showed you that I can read the process memory only if the process run by me, by the same user. But if I'll run the pause with a different user, different weak user, then I'll be able to do process isolation. And therefore, again, I'll show you a demo. And again, we have here our point of sale. Currently, I'm running with the user named foo. I want to run the memory scraping demo pause. I just want to run it with another user. I'll run it with, let's say, bar. which is also not admin, don't have privileges, anything. So now I have this one. I'll just remove the log so we'll be able to understand what we have there. So now we have the demo pause, and we'll see that in the processes, it runs with a bar, not with a foo. Let's run the memory scraping, the injection attack. I just set the pan, it should work, run it, that's all. I don't even have the log because I didn't succeed to basically inject into the memory of the process that runs with a different user. So this is basic protection with a simple IT solution that can work without all the products installed on the pause. But yet, as I said, we need to somehow protect the point of sale. So what's going next? I just thought about predicting a little bit what's going to be the next things that we'll see. So I believe that, well, if you enter into a retail store, what would you prefer to steal? Raise your hand if you prefer to steal the right one. Raise your hand if you prefer to steal the left one. Okay. I would do the same, by the way, the left one. Because, well, if I'll be able to steal a mobile point of sale and it has all the logic on it, probably I'll be able to write pretty fast the next malware. The next thing is, well, memory scraping we already saw on Windows, and, well, it's pause, it's a regular pause. But I believe that the next thing will be looking for new vulnerabilities, especially on iOS, for memory scraping. I know that iOS is pretty much protected against memory scraping, but there's a lot of money there. And I believe that when there's money, there's motivation. Next thing is the fact that the cashier is actually a hacker. And why I'm saying that? Because cashier can just run an VNC server on the pause and then just publish something on the forums that saying, hey guys, if you want to connect to a point of sale and hack it, it's not a problem. That's the VNC number. Okay, so the cashier can be a hacker in this case, and it can be pretty easy because it has the cashier have the permissions to run the pause. Okay, the next thing is the robot ducky. Well, there's a lot of exploits of the robot ducky, and I believe that even on those point of sales that they have blocked USB stick, still they'll be able to get in with a robot ducky and put an exploit, and sometimes it can be offline attack in this case. At least that's what I think. So let's just summarize what we learned so far. So the first thing is, well, the fact that point of sales actually protected by op security. And, well, they do it because most of the people don't understand how to hack point of sales. Well, now you have the vectors, so I suppose that it won't be more security through op security. The next thing is the fact that due to the assumptions that I explained here, it's pretty simple exploitation of the system because you just need to inject a DLL. Or you just need to read the process memory because anyway you'll have the admin rights on the point of sale. And the last thing is the fact that it's pretty hard to protect because, and as I said in the beginning of the lecture, it's not easy and I can't find the right solution, or at least one solution. Probably we'll need to do a lot of things to make it a little bit more secure. But from your side and not the vendor side or retailer side, don't worry, your credit cards are anyway insured, so it doesn't matter. Any questions? Thank you. Yeah.
My question is on. So my question is not really a question as much as I think the examples you provided are overly simplistic IT, standard IT attacks, is unrepresented in the government team. You're not touching anything on iOS. You're not touching anything. Authorization and settlement flows, we don't control them. So if we work with the vendors to actually secure the POSs, that's one thing. I don't have control over that. I work with the merchants. I work with the actual EMV provider to actually secure that flow. None of what you described actually attacks a POS.
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question.
It's a statement that this is a very simplistic transaction flow that is not representative of most big-scale retailers.
Well, I don't know on which retailer are you speaking, but I'm also familiar with few retailers. These assumptions taken from these retailers, tier 0, tier 1, more than 1,000 branches, sites.
Windows-based only.
Windows-based only, yes. I don't have the assumptions about the Linux here.
That's right. Gotcha. Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions? Yeah.
Does the different user technique work also in Windows XP?
I can't hear you. Can you just?
One of your techniques was to run the process on a different user. Does this work also on Windows XP? Because I think mostly Windows POS are based on XP.
Well, actually, it's a good solution for both Windows XP, Windows 7. As I said, it's just part of the solution because, anyway, if you'll have the admin rights, you'll be able to do the memory scraping. So as for your question, you asked if it works on Windows XP, and it will work on Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, and that's the example of Windows 8.1. Anyway, it works. Okay? I can't hear you. Just can you just get closer or through the microphone? Yeah, that's better.
My question is why there's a need to store the credit card numbers on a intermediate point? Why not use the hardware, the point of sale machine itself, to encrypt and send it to server?
So let me understand. The question is, why do we need to store the credit cards?
Yeah, in a server.
Yeah. So in cases that you have offline scenarios, for instance, the store is disconnected from the headquarters, and still you need to make sure that the store works. That means that actually in this case you'll need to store somehow the credit card and don't do the processing because you can't do it. So you just store it and then forward it when you'll have the connection. Sorry? I can store them encrypted, but if the question is correct, if I'm storing it encrypted, so can it be stolen? So actually, if you still encrypted it, the key is somewhere there. So it doesn't matter. If the malware is smart enough, he'll be able to decrypt it. The question is if I can encrypt it and then process it encrypted. Yeah, if the merchant supports it, then you'll be able to do it. Okay? Other questions? Thank you.